Hello and welcome to the Young Film Academy podcast, the essential podcast for teenagers looking to make their way into the creative industries. I am Dan Allen and I'm joined this week by James Walker. How's it going, James?
Very good, Dan. And we are going behind the scenes.
No, James. We're going behind the scenes.
This is getting meta. We are going behind the scenes, everyone, and very excitingly, because we're going to be talking to someone who specialises in behind the scenes, and they are an increasingly important part, right, of all TV and sort of films made today. You really can't skimp on this stuff in the modern world. So I'm really excited that we're going to be talking to our guest today. She has worked on some incredible TV shows and films, including the Amazon series The Boys, Chucky the TV Show, Titans, the Zombie series for Disney, Reacher, Handmaid's Tale, list goes on. She's really had a huge experience working on this stuff, and we're gonna hear, because we get this is one of the funnest things at Young Film Academy, isn't it? Doing the behind the scenes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we do behind the scenes, don't we, for all the Project Paradiso films, and the behind the scenes are great at summer camp, where people watch obviously the main films and then they get to see a behind the scenes compilation. So we're behind the scenes. We're fans of behind the scenes.
We are, and they get so much engagement. Do you, on your films, Dan, have you been sufficiently diligent about behind the scenes, or have you done the old classic and just slightly not giving it enough attention? Be honest.
I love behind the scenes, and I love giving it as much attention as I possibly can. The behind the scenes of, say, like Lord of the Rings when I was younger, I was obsessed with.
Genius.
They were the best. And you could tell that Peter Jackson really cared about it. And that's what I love. I'd love to be in the position, but it does take a little bit of extra time and effort to do that. And you need to actually have a bit of space to do it. I feel like most of the films I've worked on, the duration of the shoot hasn't been long enough. Maybe that's just an excuse, but you know, there's not really time between setups. It's just go. But I would love to put as much time and effort in to sharing that knowledge moving forward, because it genuinely felt like he was talking to aspiring filmmakers all over the world, you know?
Yeah, totally. I also love Behind the Rings. But Behind the Rings? Behind the Rings. Behind the scenes of Behind the Rings.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, without any further ado, welcome to the podcast, Candice. How's it going?
Thanks for having me.
It's very exciting to have you. So, Candice, you wear many hats, and have worn even more hats, including, I think, acting and directing. In terms of your behind-the-scenes stuff, I wonder, how do you explain what you do to friends and family?
That's a great question. I'm very much a multi-hyphenate, and I think all of my different experiences throughout my life have led me to kind of this very unique position I'm in right now. So how I describe it, I'm primarily a behind-the-scenes and EPK producer. And for those who don't know what EPK is, that's an electronic press kit. So I'm on the marketing side of on-set capture during the run of a film or TV production. Sometimes my work happens while a show is being shot, and sometimes it's happening afterwards. I'm also a gallery producer, and for those who don't know what a gallery is the big photo shoot that happens where we capture all of the key art and any publicity images that are needed with the cast, and sometimes some key crew are brought in for elements on that day, but most of the time it is just featuring our key cast members. And that's what they would build their poster out of. So I help produce those shoots, and I work with companies from Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Disney, NBC, the CW, just kind of across the board. And when I'm describing what it is that I do, it really changes job to job.
Yeah.
It changes production to production. It changes network to network and how they approach things. But if I were to sum it up in one sentence, and I'm happy to go into more detail, it's kind of just taking whatever the goal is of that day and seeing it from pre-production and then handing it off just before post. So I'm no part of post-production. So I'm there pre-production, into production, leading the day, coordinating as sort of the go-between of the network and the show, executing on the day, managing my crew, and then oftentimes just handing off or sending off hard drives after that. And then all of our marketing materials are handled internally. So I'm not really part of that process.
Amazing. So the EPK, does that ever include stuff like the gallery and the BTS producing, or is that generally like what is in an electronic press kit, and is there overlap? Like, are you doing the same jobs at the different jobs at the same time?
Absolutely. So again, because each shoot is so different, sometimes that EPK is I'm just going to set for one day during the course of production with a crew of camera operator that acts as a DOP, one sound mixer, myself as the producer. Oftentimes we have a publicist with us. Sometimes we have a network representative, but oftentimes they're not even there. And we go in and we set up a seated interview setup somewhere on location, whether in studio on one of the sets or in some side room, because they only have a lunchroom for us. We try to make it look a little more interesting than a lunchroom. And we just shoot there one day and that's it. Other times for a gallery shoot, it turns into a whole marketing day where we can have multiple stages operating simultaneously. An example would be I help produce alongside a company called Run of Show Productions, the gallery for the boys on Amazon every year. So on that, we have a massive ensemble cast. And so for a gallery marketing day, we have oftentimes one stage with 3 different seamlesses set up for photos to be taken. And seamlesses are like photo backdrops. And then we have sets that are lit where photos are going to be happening. And then on separate stages, we have videos set up. So on the EPK side, it could be a seated interview with one actor. Or for one season of The Boys, what we did is something much like an Actors on Actors, where we had 3 cameras running, 2 actors sitting opposite each other, and I'm directing them through a conversation around certain topics. While at the same time, we have green screen running on another stage where actors are coming through either in individual or multiples to act in some way in world, whether it's we're giving them certain lines to say and we're going to throw something into the green screen that places them in the world of the show, or we're creating Giphies out of actions that they're doing that will show up on your social media as little add-ons on your Instagram story. So all of these things can be happening at the same time on a gallery shoot or a marketing day. And EPK oftentimes, well, I'll back up. EPK is meant to directly reference the interviews and the information that's being gathered by the whole marketing and publicity team to be used in all forms of marketing and publicity. Maybe the publicist is just going to pull lines from or words that a certain actor said, and that will show up in a press release. So it's not video, they're just being quoted. But other times those elements are being divvied up and say, Entertainment Tonight or E-Talk or some major entertainment publication, they want to see one clip of an actor giving a quote about how they would describe the upcoming season of the show. And they pull that one clip and they send that off, and then that gets aired on broadcast. So how an individual network or streaming service decides to use or utilize their marketing materials can change every time. So defining exactly what that EPK is for can be tricky, because just sort of multi-purpose capture that you hope someone is holding the reins on and guiding, and then it gets distributed to whomever they'd like to be advertising the show.
Because I suppose, I was thinking about the days of DVDs, because often the behind the scenes, certainly I remember a lot of it was in the days of DVDs, which a lot of our listeners won't be familiar with. Those are long gone. But it was important that you had some behind the scenes content, right? You needed something to put on DVD extras. And it felt like at the time that was almost how this behind the scenes model kind of grew initially, was from that. It was from every DVD had to have a behind the scenes. And I remember a lot of producer friends of mine were talking about how it was often an afterthought in those early days. It really was. And there were some pretty ghetto productions that were going on. And it really was, basically choose a film student, give them a camera and say, do something. We just need something for the reel. So I suppose kind of give us a little bit of, big picture, the genesis of how this stuff has evolved from your perspective from those kind of quite early days. Because even before that, there was a time when movies, TV shows just didn't really do behind the scenes in the same way, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that is kind of, when you asked me at the beginning how I would describe this, that element of behind the scenes capture, that is often how I say it. I'm like, on the DVDs, the VHS option, you got to see exactly what it is behind the scenes, what's going on in the show. Maybe you're seeing quick stand-up interviews with actors or the director or a writer, and it's very casual and on the fly. Essentially, it's the same today. It's pardon me, I'm going to cough. Essentially, it's the same today. It's often run and gun. Oftentimes, we're walking into a set where there's a million things going on, and we are this extraneous piece that's entering a complicated ecosystem that is production, and we're our own little unit, and people are looking at us like, who are you? What are you doing here? Why are you here? Everyone knows each other so well, and it is scrappy. It's scrappy. So a piece of this, sometimes it's the formal seated EPK we were talking about, and sometimes it is just the behind the scenes on the fly capture. And it's very similar to what we used to see. It's everything from going into a stunt rehearsal and watching an actor work with a stunt coordinator to sort out their choreography going into a fight. And then we come back a week later and we shoot the action sequence. And hopefully, fingers crossed, there'll be a moment in the day where the stunt coordinator has a beat where they can look at our camera and say something like, it's going great. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So these days are often, pardon my language, a crapshoot. We can go in with a whole list of, we want to get stand-up interviews on the side of the set very casually as they're available. These 4 actors and the director. And we walk out having been able to shoot 3 shots of one scene because someone's having a bad day and they don't want that recorded. So it's always a little bit different, which is part of what I love about it. Every day is its own challenge, and you can't really predict how it's going to go.
But I'm guessing it's become more important in the world of sort of social media and digital marketing and all those things. This element has become massively bigger, right, than it used to be pre-social media, because suddenly all those assets you're talking about and all that behind the scenes stuff and all those little interviews, yeah, you're absolutely right. They can be used by a team and put in so many different ways that were just never even available. So I'm guessing, are budgets bigger? I mean, what you're describing seems on certainly there's some of those shows, a lot more than I ever remember it being in terms of having multiple stages and having times. Because, I suppose the context of this, we've spoken to a wonderful set photographer who does a lot of stills for big TV shows and things. And Jack was talking about how difficult it is to get the time. He's almost like, it's really difficult. How do you feel? Do you feel that now people are kind of much more up with the value of what you and your team are doing? Or do you feel that is always a constant friction to sort of get what you need in the time?
It's a constant friction. Because you're up against so much. Budgets are getting tighter and tighter. I think coming out of the IATSE strike that we saw last year, in general, budgets are tighter in the big world production, and they're even tighter in the marketing side, which is where most of my work falls. My crew, my team, we report, generally speaking, I'd say 9 times out of 10 directly to the network or streaming service. We don't report to the production. We're not paid by the production. There's oftentimes an intermediary third-party company that the marketing budget from the network hires, and that team manages our crew's payroll. So we're an entirely separate budget. And we're a different entity. So when we come in and we are popping in for like a day or two, it is a bit different than the stills photographers. Stills photographers are still, for the most part, I'd say, at the opposite side, 9 times out of 10 hired by the show, and they're They're, whether they're full-time or part-time, they're a consistent photographer that's coming in repeatedly throughout the season. Sometimes that isn't the case and they're just handpicked and they're going in for 1 or 2 days. But most of the work that happens in my sphere is what we would call daily work. It's not often full-time. I've found myself in full-time positions in EPK, BTS, like twice in my career thus far. So really it is in and out, and there is a lot of friction. There's a lot going on. Shows are always trying to desperately make their days. There's never enough time or there's never enough time to do as many takes as everyone would love to do. At a certain point, you have to stop, and people are tired in between. If I'm coming in month 6 of a run because finally an actor knows a lot about their character and we want to get coverage of this massive scene and we're waiting for that sweet spot in the season where enough has happened and people can actually speak to the story, as opposed to in month one or month 2 when they're still discovering the story and it feels like there isn't a lot to say, then they're tired and they don't want to participate. And so I find it's different on every set based on who the showrunner is, based on who your first AD is, how supportive or willing they are to help you on the journey to complete your capture plan for the day. It depends on the network's relationship with the show. If there's friction between the network and the production itself, oftentimes they're not as amenable to helping out. It depends on the actors. And then it really depends, like, did everyone get enough sleep last night? Like,
100%.
Is
like all
craft
film sets, yeah.
great today? Are the snacks flowing?
Yeah.
Are people fed? Is the stunt working? Are the prosthetics, is the blood cannon going the way it's meant to? Or are we an hour behind schedule and everyone's tense? And like, yes, the actors are sitting there and probably they'd be available, but production's holding them because we might be going any minute. And so it's a constant dance. And part of that, part of my job is when I'm on set, navigating, finding those moments, paying attention and understanding the general flow of production to go when the ADs aren't thinking about me because they don't want to be thinking about me. I can be watching I'm listening. There's going to be a turnaround coming up after this shot. That turnaround's going to take approximately 8 minutes to 15 minutes. That actor ate lunch just before the last scene, so I know that they've had downtime. I've gone over and I've checked in with the actor. They know what it is I'm going to be asking of them. I check in with the ADs again. Do you think that's a good window of time? Can you go up the chain and talk to powers that be? Can you send a message over to hair and makeup, let them know not to walk away, that I'm going to need them to come over and do touches? Because it's a whole gamble. And maybe I get the actor over, the ADs say yes, my camera guy is set, we've got a little light set, I'm just waiting for hair and makeup, and they went to the washroom. Okay. Wait for hair and makeup to come back, and by the time hair and makeup comes back, they need the actor back on set. I apologize to the actor, and then the actor goes, well, I don't want to do this again. You already pulled me one. Like, you never know which way it's going to go. So it is a giant question mark, and it's a negotiation. There's tons of friction.
So on some days, I'd imagine you go in and you've got a sort of a production who really values what you do, and they really get the individuals in charge. Kind of, you get on a personal basis. You feel immediate chemistry. Everyone's very good, and you get what you want. And then on some days, you have the absolute opposite, where you feel like everyone sees you as an imposter. Who are you? Why are you taking my time? This is annoying. Get out of my face. And it's really tricky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's been days where I've walked on set and it's a massive A-list actor, and we walk in and they haven't even done the first shot yet. They're doing a rehearsal. My camera guy hits record and he starts recording the rehearsal, and the A-list actor walks right up to the camera and says, "This isn't for you. You can leave set." And my camera guy turns to me and I go, "Okay, let's back up. I'm going to call my producer at the third-party company, who is my contact that goes to the network. Usually it's like the three of us will be in conversation together. Say, hey, we were told we had approval to be here today by his reps through you. Did that conversation in fact happen? Because we were just asked to leave set." And then we hear back, yep, the rep said that you were all good and coverage was fine. And we go, well, we were just asked to leave set. And they go, sorry about that. I guess you guys can call it a day. And we turn around and we leave set. Like, it is a massive.
Wow. How big is that team that you've got there? How big is your crew within the crew? You mentioned there's at least one other person with the camera. Is there like a lighting team, or is that all under camera? How many of you are there? Operating?
Again, that depends on the scale. If we're just going in for behind the scenes capture, it would be myself, our camera operator, a sound mixer, and a publicist, a unit publicist. So we're a small unit. If we're doing CPK interviews, it would be that same team, and then plus maybe we'd have a PA, oftentimes not. But if it is a larger scale day, like on The Voice, when we did our seated actors on actors interviews, we had 3 operators. One of our operators acts as a DOP. And we have oftentimes production support. So on a big gallery day, we'll have some of the crew from the show joining us. So we'll have grips, we'll have electrics, we'll have AD support, we'll have extra people joining us in support of those days. But if it's just an EPK day and we're popping in to shoot an interview on a set, maybe what we're doing is we're engaging the board op on set that manages all the lights that are keyed into the board for regular use on any given set, so they can put up what we call the show lights. So if we're in a courtroom, the courtroom is lit to look like the courtroom, and then what we are handling is our subject lighting for our interview, as opposed to lighting an entire set. So sometimes
I was gonna say, because looking at some of the great behind the scenes and interviews and stuff on the page, I was struck by sort of how themed a lot of the different ones are, which I have so many questions about that. But I wanted to ask first specifically about the Chucky ones, because the Chucky behind the scenes interviews or episodes seem almost like their own TV show. You've got like Chucky that's literally talking to camera, breaking down his favorite kills from that episode before it then goes into this sort of traditional behind the scenes coverage. So it literally felt like its whole own show that was scripted. Obviously, you've got the voice there as well, the puppeteering. Like, is that a completely different beast to the other ones? Like, what is the process like on something like that?
So that's a great question. And a great example of the melding between what I'm doing on set and what's happening in post-production. So those pieces of Chucky sitting in the chair at the beginning of those BTS vignettes are actually handled completely in post-production. So those had nothing to do with me. So those beats weren't live on set. Yeah. Those they manufactured in post. So Chucky's a very interesting one because of the whole doll element and what it takes to bring that doll to life. Sure. Which is also seen in a bunch of the behind the scenes pieces, the number of puppeteers it takes and the animatronics involved and how much is practical and how much is happening CGI in post. But yeah, great question. That wasn't even me. So I wouldn't even know exactly how they do that, because I have on set, and that's also the crazy thing. I hand things off and they're just gone into the abyss, and I can't tell you the number of times I've gone to set, shot hours and hours, days and days worth of content and interviews, and it's never released.
No.
Well, that's hard, isn't it?
Never shows up.
And you hear this a lot in the industry, yeah. So I suppose you have no control over the post. So when we see a kind of the finished behind the scenes or package, part of the package, that is someone using the assets that you and your team have gathered, but you don't do any of the post. That's really interesting. Because I suppose my question was going to be, to what extent, when you go to a new show, to what extent can you bring innovation to the behind the scenes elements, or is it very much kind of realistically we want it kind of like all the others? Like if you do something a bit too outre and out there stylistically with it, is someone likely down the line to go, Candice, what the hell are you doing? Well, why have you done this?
Why is it all upside down?
Yeah. So I suppose to what extent do you, tie in thematically to the production itself? Do you tend to approach everything in pretty much the same way? Almost like a bit of shooting kind of in a flat, in a DP's way. It's like shooting flat and allowing someone later to color grade it stylistically as a metaphor. Like, how do you approach that?
That's a great question. so much of what we're doing is we're dancing around what already exists. So we're actually quite limited by whatever is available to us on the day. I think innovation and stylistically speaking, each of my operators that I work with have their own style and how they build a frame, their eye for what they find interesting. And then behind them is me also watching what's going on, seeing more than what's just through their viewfinder. Maybe I'm seeing something that's going on off on the other side of the stage, and us working together to capture as much as possible. Why I'm being so broad in my response is there isn't a ton of room for style. Oftentimes we're on tight sets where we're negotiating for space with the stills photographer going, okay, you take the first take. Can we get the second take? Because there's physically not enough room for people in a given space. Versus, I think a great example when we talk stylistic approaches to this type of capture is my sister Houston does the same work that I do. And she works full-time for a company called Future Time Pictures that's based out of London in the UK. And her company manages all of the behind the scenes for the Mission Impossible films. So on the last Mission film, there was an incredible behind the scenes piece that came out that it went viral of Tom Cruise riding his motorbike off a cliff. And you're seeing that whole the practicing and the structure of what that looks like. And then you're seeing what it looked like in the film after all the post-production was done, and you're not seeing the track that he's going off of. That was shot by the company that my sister works for. She wasn't on that production, but that's an example of what is possible with interest and budget and a certain type of relationship and collaboration with the production, which can exist. And then there are some where I'm popping in for one day. I've never been on the show before. They haven't had any other season. And it's just like pop in, pop out, and there's zero relationship. There's no time. We're basically just tiptoeing around set and trying to make sure all the actors, even though it says it on the call sheet and they were told that we were going to be there that day, that they're aware that we're there, that they don't feel like we're just stalkers takes. It's tricky.
We actually spoke to on this pod Eddie Hamilton, who's the editor of the Mission Impossible movies, and he actually cut that piece that you're referring to from the footage that your sister's company did. And he was saying that originally the genesis, if I remember rightly, of that piece was that actually Tom Cruise said, I want something to show the studio all of the hard work that has taken me to do this. So I want you to come and document all my jumps and my base jumps and my motorbike stuff. And that was in part where that piece kind of originated from and then sort of grew out of. But I think that's a great example of how, almost it can become bigger than the thing itself.
And where it comes down to the people that are part of the production, whether it is the showrunner or the director or a lead actor that is very interested in this type of content and understands its value in terms of marketing. Something that you had touched on earlier that I haven't addressed yet was the current, how do I phrase this? The current approach to marketing and I want to phrase this correctly because it's something I like very much stand behind. There is an opportunity right now with how people are consuming media to, on a TikTok, get millions of eyes in a second with a piece of content that is not that special or highly produced. That's an opportunity. And some people are willing to embrace these opportunities and some people aren't. And there's this piece in the middle that gets really clunky that I call branding. And people want to stay very true to a certain color or brand or image or picture, and they want to control it. Modern marketing and what exists on social media, I think, demands unfiltered self-deprecation, honesty, and our audiences more and more want to know who our actors are, who the people are at the core, and not the super clean, polished, traditional sit-down.
It's boring.
It's
just boring after a while.
And the more people when audiences feel like they know someone, they want to know everything that they're doing. It's the easiest marketing model, but not everyone is on board with it. I had a point, and I forgot what we were talking about before.
No, it's great.
No.
But I think that's so interesting, because I think that leads to, I wanted to ask about this sense, you mentioned it in earlier, that when things don't go right, okay, let's talk about that. Because on sets, we know very well things often don't go right. Actors fluff it, the crew fluff it, it doesn't work, the thing isn't happening, people get tired, people get stressed, people have rants. We've all seen those online. Now, those can be some of the strongest marketing tools. Like, those are often the things that really go viral. It's not necessarily that, weirdly, the jump where Tom Cruise gets it wrong and almost dies is the thing that's going to go viral, as opposed to a video of Tom doing 320 amazing things because he's amazing. Well done, him. And so I suppose the question is, where do you sit in terms of trying to be aware of that and sort of capture the stuff that's not going right? Or is that when the productions start to get a bit defensive because they're like, because everyone's defensive. They don't want to see people, they have a natural reaction. I don't want you to shoot that. I got it wrong. I only want you to shoot the good stuff. Like, how does that tension play out?
It's part of my conversations with the people who hire me. It's always, okay, what are you calling me for? Because when the phone rings, I don't know which of the many jobs I do they're calling me for. And then how many days are you looking at? And what type of content are you looking for? And then we have conversations that are sometimes come to Jesus moments around what I think is actually possible with the number of days we have, in part because relationship building is what allows trust and allows the most authentic and interesting content to be created. When a camera operator is just popping in and nobody knows who they are, and it's a tight set and things are a little bit tense, and an actor just sees one more camera there and that camera's rolling between takes when they're getting notes from the director. Like, it's very easy to have your backup. But I've had opportunities to build some phenomenal relationships with talent and directors and writers in a bit of a different capacity. As an example, last year I worked on Eli Roth's horror film Thanksgiving, and I was on that full time, but I was just doing social media capture. And he and I became fast friends, and the cast were all a bunch of young actors that felt like my peers, and we became fast friends, which meant that I had an incredible amount of access. It meant that I got to stand right next to Eli at his monitor at every take, and he loved that I was there, and we got along, and he felt safe with the type of capture that I was doing, and he knew that I would stop recording when I needed to stop recording, and I wasn't going to cross any boundaries. But it meant that he could be looking at the monitor, watching a take, and then turning and looking at my cell phone and going, oh my God, this is the best, this is so good. And these are the moments that are gold that people eat up. But I can't have a camera operator or myself going in to do social capture on set just walk up to a director at their monitor and start shooting them when I've been there for 5 minutes. So it's something to navigate. And a big piece of it also comes from, and I think for our young listeners, this is something that can be used across the board, is you have to understand the delicate ecosystem of what a set is. For any role in production, you need to understand it. You have to have an understanding of what everyone's job is and why their job is very important. There's a very specific reason every single person is there, even if when you're new it looks like a flurry of a beehive and half the people are sitting down half the time and you don't understand what they do, or everyone's there for a very important reason. And if you understand all that and respect it and find your place in the flow to be working with them, which is critically important in these daily roles where you're just popping in, that's how you find those beautiful moments of authenticity and nuance and are able to capture them without either exposing someone or taking advantage of a moment of vulnerability or crossing a line. You also need a very particular amount of emotional intelligence and social intelligence if you're going to be in this type of role, because I've watched people navigate it in a clumsy way and they get fired and kicked off sets very, very fast. And it just sours things for everyone else, for the people who are there doing their jobs, for the people that also do the same work that have to come in and replace you. A big piece of that is building relationships and also being an intelligent individual that understands their role.
Yeah.
And not get in the way of other people. And capture moments, and they can live on social media, and it can be marketing gold. It's a very, very delicate dance.
With the social media stuff you mentioned, obviously on Eli Roth's film, obviously that you mentioned you're there daily. Are you then posting stuff daily? How do you know what's spoilers and what isn't spoilers? Like, is there red lines through things on the script that you're like, anything to do with this you can't share? Because I imagine, the moment you're there for that extended period of time, the chance of you sharing something that shouldn't be shared at that stage goes up a lot.
It's a great question, and it's a question I get a lot. But actually, all of my capture is just captured and banked, and they don't.
Gotcha.
And I don't release anything, so I'm not given access to social media accounts. I'm just doing a specific type of capture in a specific medium, like the BTS or EPK would be, where then it gets passed off, and they put together their edits internally in post production, and I'm hands off after that. Sometimes there's specific social beats or TikTok trends or something that I'm capturing that I think it would be advantageous for them to see what me and the actors were thinking when we put it together. I will just edit them and give them the option of using the edit that I created, but they also have the raw materials if they want to do something else with it. But yeah, that would be a very tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased that it's not part of my role.
When you say format as well, like, is that you taking the camera and rotating it so that you're filming in portrait, or is that like does that become a part of it when you get into the social media world, or are you just filming on your phone, or do you get your camera people, or if you're filming, do you just use a bigger or better camera but just sideways?
It's another great question. So it's been a bit of a dance navigating exactly what it means to do social capture on set. And I actually spent the last couple of years working with our local camera union, IATSE 667, to develop a new category based on on-set social media capture. So the title is now in our market, in our local, called an on-set content creator, which is essentially a field producer, which I haven't used that term yet. Overall, I consider myself a field producer that produces behind the scenes content, EBK content, gallery content, social media content.
Not a farmer.
Not a farmer, Dan.
Field
Not a farmer.
I produce in multiple different capacities. So essentially what an on-set content creator is, I'm doing the same things I would be doing as a behind-the-scenes producer, only with a cell phone in my hand. And to your question of how I'm shooting portrait or landscape, that's been a discussion within the union that currently, I think it's an ever-evolving conversation. Primarily, the content is just being shot in portrait as opposed to landscape, in part because in my district, in my local, behind the scenes capture that's being shot on a cinema camera is a different category within the union. So it's a unionized position. And so that type of content capture is reserved for those who are members of that category. And so the social media content is in a different category unto itself. So it's part of what distinguishes what's being shot and the type of content that's being created.
So from the perspective of someone hiring someone to do BTS, with the sort of, because I know unions then have like rates that they're like, you must pay at least this. Does it cost a production more to have some portrait footage shot or less? Like, do you see what I mean? Are they having to pay more for the landscape stuff, or is that stuff fairly standard?
In essence, but to me, I would call it more than them just paying for landscape. If they want traditional BTS capture, you are hiring a camera operator with his gear and his whole kit. And there is the option to just shoot with just an operator. You can send just an operator to set You just need a producer or a publicist if you're going to be doing interviews. So if it's just capture, it could just be the one camera operator and their kit. And then with the cell phone, it's one person again, and their kit, which is an iPhone. So it's a much smaller kit. So in theory, that is less expensive.
The rate's less.
But it's also, to me, it's about the type and quality of content and quality of the final.
Of course.
What you're capturing ends up being a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I think that we have a project called Project Paradiso, where we send some of our most promising students each year to Sicily, and they make a short film out there. And they often, the production team actually, take responsibility for creating the behind the scenes, which is, they enjoy it so much. And it's actually brilliant fun. And as you rightly say, often the most engaging content. You know, that's kind of what they want to see the most. So there may be some of our listeners listening to this going, I actually love what Candice does. And you know, that's a real thing that I could find my way into. And I really enjoyed it. So I suppose, what would you say are the particular skill sets that you need to do your job? If a young person is listening to this, kind of maybe describe the kind of things such that someone will be like, oh, maybe that's me, or maybe that isn't me.
It's a great question. There are so many things within my trajectory within this industry has brought me through many different roles and allowed me to see production from many different angles. So I think I have a unique perspective through my own experience about what skills have benefited me. And then there are some that I could say are sort of blanket across the board you'd absolutely need. In essence, as a producer, you're managerial. I'm from the first point of content, I'm working with high-level executives within marketing departments. I need to be able to navigate those conversations and guide them and provide my perspective on how we will be walking onto a set. I'm going to back up. I'm going to re-answer the question. Okay. There's so many things. And I actually get asked this a lot. I always end up going on like a giant tangent. And I know we've only got like 20 minutes left. So I'll try to not use 20 minutes to answer this. There are so many different skills you need to be able to navigate this type of role seamlessly. You need people skills. You need an immense knowledge of production from start to finish. And understanding of all the different roles of different people on set, because in any given day, I'm talking with high-level marketing executives, some of whom have spent time on set, some who have never stepped foot on set before. And then they're going to send me with a list of creative asks that I need to be able to analyze and be able to predict how likely we are able to capture them and be able to propose options for what is more easy or accessible or what we might actually be able to execute once we're there. So I need to be able to explain our limitations and possibilities going up to people who are much higher than me, while also communicating with production from our ADs to our PM about who my unit is that are coming in and what it is that we're going to be doing on a given day. So a general understanding of production, an ability to navigate difficult conversations and guide them, a creative look and be able to it's so hard. Why am I having such a hard time describing it? A creative vantage point, being willing and able to step in and give creative advice to mold content and what's possible. Once I'm on set, or actually even before that, knowing how to speak technical language with post teams on these calls in pre-production, and then being able to communicate and relay those specs to my team, my camera operator and my sound mixer, understanding their needs on the day so I can anticipate, like if we're walking into a set, knowing the language around what we need there with us for our support from electrics, from grips. So having a basic understanding of the technology that we're walking in with. understanding how to work with talent, from people who have never it's their first time on set and they're being asked to do an interview or some behind the scenes capture, or up to an A-lister that's been doing this their whole lives and a little exhausted by it. Being able to, in a very succinct way that I'm not doing right now, explain what we're on set for, what we're looking for from actors, being able to direct them through creative content, because although I'm not like a union director, I am directing the pieces there for marketing when I'm on set. It's me and my DOP. That's it.
Can I ask about that? Just about when you speak to these actors, and often when these things are cut up, often they're looking for key sound bites that are really sort of illustrative of what it is they're doing and the character they're playing. How do you have an idea of what you're being asked to get them to say? Like, are there certain things that you've heard from the marketing teams above, like, oh, if you can get such and such to say such and such, that's going to be really useful? Or are you thinking of what those useful things are? And then the next part of it is, how do you get them to say it? What are the tricks to get them to speak along the lines that you want? Or do you just say, I need you to talk about the weather for the next 30 seconds? Is that, how does it work?
Yeah. That's a great question. It's another whole skill set is I'm reading scripts and I have to be able to analyze story, because sometimes I'm being handed a bunch of questions to ask in these interviews and other times I'm being asked to develop them. So there's different angles there. Being able to distill a feature script or an entire season of television into a 20-minute interview is difficult. So that's its own skill set. Sometimes in my early conversations, if a marketing team has a very clear plan on what sort of pieces they're putting together, maybe it's like one is all about costumes, one is about sets, one is about stunts. Sometimes they'll give me certain, like, this would be a dream soundbite. Oftentimes I'm prompting them going, hey, what would you love to hear? Like, what is something, because you know this world so much more intimately than I do at this point, what is something you would love to hear? And sometimes they don't have that. They're just going, I don't know, just ask them. And I'm going, oh, there's something really interesting there. How am I going to pull that out of them? But to me, that's in the phrasing of the questions and how much I can make it conversational, which is its own skill set. Sometimes I get questions and it's like, what was your favorite scene? And if I've got 5 minutes to do an interview, sometimes there's no time for preamble and I just have to say, I'm just going to hit you with these questions and we'll see what we get. But a big piece of that is in my approach to these interviews, what the conversation's like with an actor ahead of time. When they sit down, letting them know, like, kind of like you did for me, and the viewers don't get to hear at the beginning of this podcast, like, hey, don't worry about it when you start answering questions. If you want to reset, we can reset. Like, let us know how you set things up and how much of a relationship you can build in 7 seconds with someone to make them comfortable, and building out those questions. So I read the script, I understand what would be great to give context there, and like, hey, in this season, you get to shoot in this location and that location. And with all these incredible actors, is there a standout moment or scene that made this memorable for you? Tell me about it. Describe it. Set it up. And I will encourage and more details and turn it into a silent conversation, because unlike a podcast, I'm being edited out. So that's also tricky. I can't just go like jump in and engage on certain things.
And there's definitely ways of asking questions, aren't there, where you know you're going to get platitudes if you ask it one way, and you just get, we've all seen actors do it. They're asked a particular type of question and they just roll out, it's been such a joy to work on this production. It's been such a great thing. I've had such a good experience.
Totally.
It's been a long shoot, but I think we've got great material. I can't wait to see it come. And you're just like, yeah. You know, actually, sport is particularly bad at this, I think, actually. Sports, I don't know if there are any sports games. You know, so many of the interviews at the end of these things, they're all media coached. pushed up, to the ends of the world, and they're told, say this, don't say that. And so literally any captain comes off any team and they're just like,
at the end of the day,
if they've done badly, they're like, we can take,
just didn't put enough effort
at the end of the
in.
day, you can take the positives, we can go back, we can really work on the things we did better, and you're just like, I've just heard this thousands of times before. It's boring. And then there's a way of answering a question where you actually get them to relive moments, or you see,
and it's how the interview is conducted too, because I've got a list of 20 questions. Before I go into that interview, I have my page with me, but I know all my questions. I know them because if an actor starts in their answer talking about something that relates to question number 8, and we're on question number 2, I'm not going to just go to question number 2 after that, number 3 after that. I'm going to jump on what they're saying. Tell me more about that. What was it like working with that actor? Oh, you're talking about this location. I didn't get to see that set, and I can't wait reading it in the script. It felt gritty and grimy. Like, what did it feel like to walk in there? It's about encouraging the language and the type of expression. And so it is a symbiotic relationship. And if I'm not giving, they're not going to give. And to your question of if there's a particular soundbite I'm looking for, I feel that out. Some actors, I can lead them with a question, and others, like old hat, they've done this before. Sometimes they go like, what do you want me to say? Just say it and I'll say it back in my own words. And then others, I can tell they just want a straight shooter where I'll go like, so we're doing a piece on set, on like the different sets that were built. The production design is incredible. I would love if you could talk to me specifically about the tone that was created on this set and how that's going to play out in this scene. We're doing a piece on that, and I need a soundbite. You don't have to give me a monologue. Just tell me, give me 2 sentences about it. And then it's off.
Great, yeah, and they're pros and they know, as opposed to stop fishing.
There's got to be respect. Like I don't want to come in and be like treating someone like they're over there and they're far away from me, and I'm gonna kid glove them. Like, people can also sense that, and if someone kid gloves me, I'm like immediately irritated. Do that to someone else. It's another huge piece, is just showing up and being a likable human. I have had a life as an actor, and I remember going in for commercial auditions, and with commercials, you're a human prop, and we just need someone that can take direction really well, be quiet when they need to be quiet, but be a person that would be nice to spend the day with. And then I would book all the time, and I would sit in on auditions, and I'd watch other people, and they just were like too people pleasery, and it's like, oh, it just like gives you the heebie-jeebies. Nobody likes that. Just, can you be a human being and just show up and be a human to a human?
You never see that on job descriptions, though, do you? You never see like skill set required.
Please just
being a good
regular.
human being. I mean, we just regulars, because but yes, we all know what you mean by good human being. So I think that's so fascinating, and we will talk about all of this as we discuss you actually after this. We have a sort of outro piece, which would be great fun. But I suppose maybe let's start to move back in time a little bit to sort of work out, and I think you've mentioned a little bit of this journey of yours into this particular area, because this is a very specific area. Can you just sort of outline, I suppose you mentioned you trained as an actor, kind of, if there's someone listening and they can put the pebbles, the pebbles together of the way you've got across this particular stream to where you are now, can you just outline that journey for us, and maybe start in your sort of teenage years? Like, what did you study? What kind of things are you interested in?
I'm going to take you a little bit further back, but I'll keep it brief. I was a kid actor. So I've been on set since I was 11 years old. And so I was an actor, and then all through high school and into university. And so when I was looking at where I was going to apply for what type of schooling I wanted to do in university, and I didn't want to do theater school, so I ended up in broadcast school. Radio and television broadcasting is my degree. And that gave me a hands-on look at many different aspects of production, but not quite film. And so I was already on film and TV sets, and then I got a broadcast degree, and I went into live television production, and I worked as a floor director for about 1.5 years straight after I graduated. And then I was like, what am I doing? I want to be acting. So I moved to New York, and I went to an acting conservatory in New York. And out of that program, my mentor, or my teacher who became my mentor, I was his last graduating class at the school that he had been teaching at for, I think it was 25 years. And he left and he opened his own school. And I left with him and I helped him open his acting school. And while I was there, I trained to be an acting teacher under his tutelage. And then after that, I moved back to Toronto and I was still acting and I was working as an acting coach, but I decided I wanted to get back into what I had been doing in university, which I haven't mentioned, but I was shooting quite a bit in university. So I was a camera operator and I worked for a digital production company as both a camera operator and an editor. And then that kind of grew within the company. Then I was also producing there and I was directing. And then kind of by chance, I fell into the work that I'm doing now. A friend of mine was doing behind the scenes producing and needed coverage on a day on set. And she was like, I know you haven't done this specific role, but I think you'd be great at it. Could you just cover me that day? Went in, did that. And the crew I was working with, we really got along. So they started just passing my name along to other people. And then the role just kind of grew and grew. So I am a multi-hyphenate in so many ways because I still do many things. I'm a behind the scenes producer, but I also shoot. I shoot behind the scenes on sets. I shot behind the scenes for a Netflix film earlier this year that shot in Toronto. I produce gallery shoots. I do social media content on set. And it really, truly all, I believe I believe I've landed where I am now as a culmination of all of those experiences because I have experience behind a camera and sitting in an edit. I have experience producing and I've experience directing actors as an acting coach. I have all of these different skill sets that mean that when I get to set and I'm in this role that demands a knowledge of so many things, I have an awareness of what each of these roles play in the overall picture of what we're trying to accomplish. And honestly, it's that understanding and having been exposed to so many different things that has allowed me to be quite uniquely successful in this funny, tiny little pocket of the industry that I found myself in.
So I suppose to summarize, it's actually, if a young person listening to this, if they've got quite a general interest and quite a wide spectrum of interest, because some do, some don't, right? Some are absolutely like, listen, I want to be a sound recordist. I just want to edit. I just want to write. I just want to direct. It sounds like this role's not for them. But if someone's interested in lots of angles and has experience in and a general understanding, then this could be the kind of thing that may well provide a fulfilling and very varied, Absolutely. It sounds like, career.
Yeah. And if I were to give a piece of advice to people who are young in this industry is just each of your experiences will color your next experience. And I think the more important than what you're doing is how you're doing it. And are you showing up? Are you curious? Are you kind? Are you paying attention and trying to learn? Are you putting yourself in positions where you're going to be meeting new people and trying different things? Because I never would have dreamed this job up for myself, ever. And I love it. And I couldn't have told you like this is where I was going even 7 years ago. Like the trajectory has changed so many times, but the person I have been along the way has not, in that I have been steadfast and my integrity has mattered. And I've cared about each of these jobs while I was in it. And I never half-assed anything. It was about showing up for each of these positions, not because me shooting meant I was going to become a DOP. People still ask me, like, do you want to be doing something different? And I'm like, maybe. They're like, do you think you'll do this for forever? I'm like, I don't know. Whatever comes next. But each time I step into a job, I am going to show up fully and do my best. And I'm going to carry in the experiences of every other job, because I would not be as good at this job if I hadn't experienced any one of those sort of positions earlier in my career.
So it's almost separating, isn't it, that the personal qualities, and I think don't half-arse it should be put on a big notice board. I think we should have that up at Young Film Academy. But no, absolutely rightly. And, so many of our students know that instinctively, and there are those who find it, it's like if they're not completely invested at that moment, there can be a tendency to half-arse it to some degree at times. So I think it's keeping, your own personal values and commitment whilst accepting that in your professional journey, it will vary and you never quite know where it'll take you, but being true to those values. I think that's really, really
and
sound.
And also going okay, I'm popping into PA on this random job with these random people. Like, I'm tired and I'd like a day off and I've been grinding so long. You just never know who you're going to meet, and you don't know what opportunities are going to come from that. And you have no idea what you're going to learn if you're open to learning. There's no one avenue into work in this industry. Some people go to school and they find a job right out of it. Some people stumble into a random job because so-and-so's uncle needs help that day, and then they've got a lifelong career in it. Like, I have an uncle who is a mechanic, and he spent his first day on set when he was 65 because they needed someone to work on one of the cars one day, and now he's working regularly. Like, it's just, you never know. But yes, exactly what you're saying. How you show up and how you pay attention to what's going on around you and respect the ecosystem that is being on a set, you'll find your pocket. And you don't need to, it doesn't need to be prescriptive, and you don't need to limit yourself. You can be many things. And anyone that tells you can't be many things is incorrect. You can be all sorts of things, and you can change anytime you want. And there'll always be another opportunity if you're open to it.
That's such a lovely message. I was going to ask, the advice that you said you would give to teenagers, is that the advice that you would give to yourself if you were speaking to your teenage self?
I think I would, yeah, because there's so much pressure in those years. Like, you need, or I felt that feeling, at least, of like, I have to figure things out, or where am I going, or what am I doing, and I don't want to waste time. And I think it's that trapdoor of wasting time. It's not a waste of time if you show up. It's a waste of time if you don't show up. It's a waste of time if you half-ass it. Then you're wasting everybody's time. Like, really showing up and throwing myself into each of those experiences served me so well. And I a little bit was doing it out of fear, and probably sometimes out of desperation of like, I don't know if this is the right thing, but I guess I'm going to just really try. And I'm so grateful for that just try attitude that I had. I think the advice would almost just be some comfort of like, yeah, you're doing it. This is it. Like, and it's not going to change. Yeah.
Trust the process. Yeah. Trust that it will lead you somewhere. We often use that metaphor, from sort of, those scenes in movies where you often have a character stands on the edge of a cliff and there's a ravine, and someone will say something kind of weird and like, just trust, and they have to step out, and it's that moment they actually have to step out, and the bridge will build under their feet. But until they step out, the bridge won't build. And
totally,
it's
just
kind of like that,
and also
isn't it?
That you're never going to arrive. I think that's another thing that we learn as we have more experiences and get older. Like, I still will be hit with imposter syndrome sometimes. Like, I was flown out to LA to produce a shoot for Apple where I was there to manage a massive A-lister. And I'm like, what? Why? Me? Huh? And it went phenomenally, and I did a great job, and everyone was really happy, and I was like giggling the whole time, going like, what in the heck? But it's just about like, there's no arriving. There's no, then you feel like you figured it out. Every job, especially in this industry, is going to present its own new challenge, and really, truly, the only things you can dictate are how you show up, your attitude, how you treat the people around you. Are you respectful, and do you care? The rest is the rest.
Candice, thank you so much. This has been so wonderful and informative, helpful, inspiring. So, yeah, thank you so much.
I hope so. I hope somebody takes something from this. Just be kind to yourselves.
I have.
Me too. We learned so much doing this, and this has been a brilliant shining a light into a whole new world of behind the scenes of behind the scenes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
that was really wonderful. I feel like Candice is just a lovely energy that you would want on your set. Shooting your BTS, someone that's very aware, and I think she really wonderfully painted that image that you do need to be clued up. You can't just be like, oh, I'm a BTS person, so I don't need to understand how film works, I just need to capture it. Like, no, that's the wrong mindset, because you're going to get in someone's way. It's such a big operation, filmmaking, that you kind of, you need that awareness. And maybe you don't have to have the training, but just you need to very quickly learn what everyone is.
Well, it really reminded me, I totally agree, and it reminded me of our conversation with stills photographer Jack Merriman, where Jack described a very similar journey, where actually Jack trained as an actor to begin with, much like Candice, and almost his ability to be on a set as an actor and through that journey and then playing different roles led him to be able to navigate the politics of his job, and also knowing, because they're doing similar things, you're working out both emotionally, time-wise, technically, when is your moment to pounce, to get that thing, when to hold back, when to come in. And that's a very human judgment, but you've got to understand the world in order to make that judgment well. And so having that generalized sense of how the whole set is operating, I think that was such a good message. I totally agree. And yes, and Candice had such a, you could just even see in that podcast, such an emotional intelligence and ability to read situations and express herself. And you could just see her running a great team and also having a lot of fun. I think I would really enjoy that job. I mean, I'm pretty terrible at it, but I'd really enjoy that job. It sounds so varied because you're always going into a different set, right?
Yeah.
And a different thing. I don't know what you made of it. I can see that the politics must be tricky because you're not, and that was interesting, she made that distinction. You are employed by the marketing company. You're not employed by the film production company. So to some extent, I can imagine there's all that friction on set, which she sort of referred to occasionally. So literally the crew going, that's where I put my lights. So can you not put your lights there? Because that's where, you get that. And that must be tricky, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it takes a couple of days when you're doing a film or of any scale and length. It takes a couple of days for a crew to find their groove and to really get into the flow, learn who everyone is, learn what their strengths are, develop that communication shorthand as well. So then suddenly when you have this new, she might be coming in, her team might be coming in 2 weeks into production. So they really are in their groove now. They're a well-oiled machine. And suddenly there's this extra component that it's like, okay, this is going to go right into the middle of the machine.
The kid at school who arrives late after term started.
Yeah, exactly. And, they're going to have to use some power, I would imagine. They're going to have to borrow power from somewhere, and then, that can mess with like the sound, the lighting team rather, that are like, they've mathematically calculated how many lights they can draw from one power source and all this jazz. So, yeah, I can see that, but I think I get it, but also it's like, come on, like, you're all trying to do the same thing. You're trying to make a successful movie, and they're trying to help make it successful,
And Candice's job, let's be clear, as I referenced, when it was back and it was just that kind of behind the scenes, only really found its way onto a DVD extra that very few people, unless you're real, nut about these things, watched. But now it becomes such a massive part. And as Candice referenced, I mean, sometimes that material can be watched by far many more people than actually watch the show itself. And you've got such a reach, and it is so important. So, and I think that makes that job exciting, actually.
What made me laugh a little bit? What I was trying to probe towards as well is when she was talking about the union specifications for the different types of content. Because in my head, like historically, I remember when portrait video started to become a thing, there was so much snobbery amongst sort of like filmmakers being like, I will not hold my camera sideways. I will film in landscape, like movies should be. So it's just funny, like hearing that type of content is sort of protected by unions as well, but it is charged at a lower rate than landscape.
Well, it's like a landscape premium.
Yeah. It's like landscape is still the thing, It's like
Well, I think we should actually. It was an idea. We should probably do a pod all about landscape portrait and the differences and the technical stuff, because that is becoming more and more of a thing. And some cameras now starting to try to. I know certain gimbals and things will adjust. You can on drones and gimbals now. You can literally make it so it will shoot portrait and landscape by physically moving the camera, as opposed to cropping in later in post, which means you're always down resing it.
What I'd be interested in is whether, I'm sure modern cameras must have this, but I haven't seen it, where you can do like a portrait frame overlay, because the amount of times you're shooting content and actually you end up having to do a crop. What if, rather than have like the bars, because you can get the bars overlays as lines on certain cameras to show you what 235, so the anamorphic aspect ratio would be, but you actually are filming a 16:9 image rather than 235, which is like a narrow image. Could they not put like a portrait box overlaid?
I think you might be on another podcast right now, Dan. I think you are already doing the podcast I'm suggesting, which is not this podcast. We're doing a different one right here, right now. So let's move away. Let's step away from the 235. Dan.
Step away from the 235. Step away from the 235.
I thought that the other thing that Candice talked about, that message we've just heard so many times across so many people in different areas, that thing of not knowing at the beginning of your journey where you're going to get to in the end. And we've heard that from almost everybody in some fashion, is that, when you start, you go from pebble in the stream, which is, this is a metaphor, you just jump from one to the next and then the next and then the next. And you don't know when you start that journey where you're going to land. But if you commit to it, and I thought, as Candice was lovely in that phrase, don't do it half-assed, really, really commit, and you will end up somewhere beautiful, hopefully, for you. So that's not to say it's not going to be easy. It's all, it's all covered in golden clover. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be the long dark night of the soul, Dan, like as in script journeys. But
the reversal of the don't waste your time was the bit that you were talking about, when Candice said, like, it's a waste of time to do something half-assed, rather than to, like, not do it at all. Doing something is never a waste of time. What is a waste of time is just, not giving it 100%. And I thought, actually, that's really interesting. And sort of matched with, I think I'd heard someone else say recently that you very rarely regret the things you do. You regret the things that you don't do.
100%. And it reminds me actually of our Project Paradiso selection process, which we have at Young Film Academy to select for our prestige project, where we select some of the most promising students each year to go to Sicily and make a film that hopefully will play on the international circuit. And one of the things that we reference when all the staff are talking about that is exactly that. It's that student commitment. It's do they have the attitude where they just really wholeheartedly commit? And if the answer is not really, often they kind of just disappear off somewhere or lose focus, or then unfortunately they often don't make the grade in that way. So I thought that was a really, really strong message. And also, of course, she was your favorite and my favorite, the cavalry are not coming, which Candice put as a sort of, I can't remember her version of that, but essentially the journey's never finished, I think was what she said, or some version of that, where, you ain't going to get to a place where it's all suddenly the Cadillac arrives and it's all done and dusted and everything's amazing. It's always going to be a scramble of some sort.
Oh, 1,000%. No, absolutely. James, I've got a question. This question is from Tom, who's 17. Tom says, I'm making a short film. Do I need to make a BTS as well? What do you think,
Tom,
James?
let me share my experiences when I was a young person making short films, and I was so stupid I often didn't give enough time or effort to those other elements, like still pictures, which we've discussed in the past, and also having a behind the scenes. Because at the time I was like, no one cares. No one's going to watch the film, let alone the film of us making the film. I mean, no one cares. And Tom, they do care. Because that content, as we've heard from Candice, will reach different audiences, and it will be fun for you, your friends, your family. the people who you've roped in to help you with this movie, they will want to see that, and they will want to see you in action and the other filmmakers, because that's another point, is that the film itself obviously only showcases the actors. And so we have this at Young Film Academy at the courses that actually often it's the family of filmmakers who really love watching the behind the scenes, because they get to see the filmmakers in action, whether that's using the clapperboard, putting on the lights, calling car, operating the camera, whatever, giving notes to actors. They want to see that bit. And I will say to you, Tom, is that yes, it will seem like extra effort, and it will take up time in your resources that I know are preciously short, but you won't regret it. It will be one of the best things you've ever done. So put the time and effort into it. Don't skimp on it. And I promise you, there will be a time when you go, I'm so glad I did that.
Absolutely, James. I have nothing to add. I think that was really good. I think, especially in today's world, the more content you have to share about your thing, the more noise you can make. So why wouldn't you put that extra energy in? Even if you just get like a little sibling or friend, maybe if you're still at school, there's someone in the year below that just wants to come and help out and film some bits. If they shoot enough stuff, there will be some usable stuff in there.
That is one other piece of advice I would give. And this is same social media. It's very, very easy to make it the job of somebody who already has a job. So you say, could you do behind the scenes, but basically you're also the DP, or you're the producer, but can you shoot behind the scenes? And it depends on obviously how many producers you've got across your project. Sometimes that's possible. That's what we do on Project Paradiso. But if possible, it is worth finding someone quite dedicated, because I think you're absolutely right. It can be just shooting with a mobile phone. That will do the job, but they do need to be there to cover the different moments and almost just have their eyes fully on that. If they're trying to do something else as well, you often find that they just haven't covered the really good stuff. And also, don't shoot too much. Don't let that person roll camera literally for the entire time that you are making that film, because they often will. Like, you're on set, you've got a 2-day shoot, you're shooting for 8 hours a day, and that person gives you 16 hours of footage. That's actually really unhelpful, because you don't even know where to start with that. So you really want them to deliver you with, half an hour of footage or 45 minutes or something, and you're going to cut that down to 5 minutes. So just be careful about your shooting ratios. Otherwise, you'll just drown in data storage, and it'll take you so much time, you'll lose the will to live.
Absolutely. James, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.
See you then.
See you then.